Hey, Walter Sorrells back with another Knife Makers Friday 5. Today I'm going to be talking about an upcoming series of videos that I'm going to be doing about this right here, the Eclipse, which is my forthcoming knife from Tactics Armory. Now, I'll get into more detail as the series, kind of comes out over the next couple of weeks, but this is just going to be a little bit of a preview of what I'll be showing. Now, just as a background to this, I did a series very similar to this about my Shadow 2 that came out a few months ago. The focus of that one was mainly on sort of the texture of my day-to-day experience as a knife maker. I'll still do a little bit of that in the upcoming series about the Eclipse, but it's going to focus a little bit more on the whole process of how I make a knife come together as a whole. The aim here is to give you a sense of, just generally what I'm trying to accomplish with making this knife and how that impacts the decisions that I'm going to make on a day-to-day basis. Now, before I get down to brass tacks, I thought I'd share a funny but also kind of dumb comment that I got from a viewer about that Shadow 2 series. I'm not going to read the whole comment, but basically what he said was kind of like, whine, whine, whine. If you're having such a bad time making knives, maybe you should just quit. I guess that he assumes that, if people talk about their problems, it's because they're unhappy with what they're doing. No. He completely and totally missed the whole point of that series, and probably if he watches this one, it'll be the same here. I'm not crapping on this guy to throw him under the bus. Well, I sort of am, but mainly I'm trying to clarify why I focus on problems that I'm facing and frankly all the things that are a pain in the neck to me as a knife maker. The point I would make to anybody who's interested in being a craftsman, an artist, an entrepreneur, whatever, is that the thing that makes these jobs interesting, in fact, the only thing that really motivates most of the artists or the craftsmen or the entrepreneurs that I know is solving problems. Solving problems. I mean, some people, sure, chasing money or whatever, but most of the people who do this kind of stuff are not. For those of you who don't know my history, I started out as a writer, and I did that professionally for a couple decades before making the long, slow, weird kind of switch over to making knives, but that's another story. Anyway, I remember I gave a speech, I think it was at the South Dakota Librarians Association. Don't ask. Anyway, I was the keynote speaker at this little convention, and in it I talked about how basically just all kinds of problems that I had as a writer. Income going up and down, some of the obstacles to publishing, how difficult it was to get a book published, all this kind of stuff. And frankly, it probably was kind of a downer, but what spurred it was that I remember talking to this other guy well before this thing who was saying, I talk to writers, I guess he was an aspiring writer at the time. He said, I talk to writers, they never seem to be honest about how much money they're making. They're always telling you this happy story about how easy it was, and it didn't really square with all the difficulties that he was running into. And so anyway, I just thought, okay, well, how about for this particular speech, just a big dose of honesty about how this job works. Not really sure how the nice South Dakota librarians really dug this truth serum kind of thing. They probably were just looking for a nice, happy bunch of writer stories. But anyway, my point was not to be a Debbie Downer. My point was to say, hey, look, if you guys are interested in how books are written, what the lives are like of all these people that you support and the books that you read, here's a real life story of a guy who does this every day. Just keeping it 100, it's challenging. And I don't really remember, but I hope there was a little uplift to the end of the speech. If there wasn't, here's kind of where it would have gone. Truth is, I considered it a huge privilege to spend my days writing books that people enjoyed reading, and the same goes for knife making. It's a huge privilege, but it's a privilege that has to be earned every day. And I don't mean that in some kind of chest-thumping, hey, look at me kind of way. I just mean like, there's no roadmap for how to do this work. It's just get up every day, start solving problems. Hey, by the way, quick footnote here. I should have a batch of Eclipses finished shortly, probably next 10 days or so. So for a limited time, I'm putting them on sale at a pretty attractive pre-order discount. I've been carrying an early prototype of this knife for a while. I know it's my knife and all, but seriously, this might be my favorite carry blade I've ever made. It's real small, real light, easy to carry. It's made for pocket carry, and it comes with a Kydex sheath. If you're interested, check it out at tacticsarmory.com. Also, for those interested in keepsakes from my videos, I forgot to put the Skinner that I made for my how-to video back, I think it was in March, up for sale. My video demo blades usually go in a couple hours, so don't sit on that one. You can find it in the specials area on Tactics Armory. So, what I aim to do in my videos, at least the ones where I talk about what it's like to be a practicing knife maker, and again, I'm just talking about hobbyist guys as well as people who might want to or actually sell knives professionally. The whole deal is problem solving. I mean, realistically, if you don't have problems, you're probably not doing anything in life. And there's a way to go about solving problems. You take them step by step. You chop them up into little pieces, and then you just try and mow them down in a methodical way. And, you know, problems, we could be talking about crossword puzzles or Rubik's Cubes or, you know, trying to get the over-under on the next Bills game. I mean, it really doesn't matter. As human beings, we're trying to solve problems, to beat our problems. Now, look, some people just perfectly happy to sit in mom's basement in the bathrobe playing Call of Duty and, you know, getting mom to make Hot Pockets for them every time they're hungry. Look, if that's your jam, okay, cool. You figured out a way to make a life that's pretty much problem-free. But it's also a life that's like got zero fulfillment. To me, the thing that actually makes life fun is solving problems. I'm a nerd, I know this. Nerding out on all my little problems, that's my jam. Doesn't mean it needs to be yours or whatever. 30,000 foot perspective, the more you see me whining about my problems, chances are the happier I am. It's weird, I know, it is what it is. Again, most of the knife makers that I know, and I'm including here guys that just do it purely for fun, they're problem solvers. Anyway, I'll wrap all this up in a minute, but just a little bit about the upcoming videos in this series. I'm going to try and show a little more about the design process than I have in the past. You know, one of the problems with it is that it's kind of, I feel like it's a little boring to just sit there and, you know, show pictures of what I'm doing on a computer screen, but that's sort of baked into the cookie. So anyway, I'll just try it out and see how you guys like it. You know, one of the things a lot of people don't understand is that design is not just like, hey, here's a cool looking thing on the screen. Honestly, I can do that in like 10 minutes on a computer. That's just not what the game is. You're trying to anticipate, you know, what people are going to like, how they're going to carry the knife, what the purpose of it is exactly, how to make it efficiently, how to make it cut well, how to make it with quality, how to make it ergonomic and comfortable. So it's fitting that whole big ball of things together that's the real challenge when you're designing a knife. You know, make one knife a year for fun, you're still in some ways playing that game because you're solving problems about how to most effectively make this knife and have it be good and usable for whatever purpose you have in mind. Now, as most of my longtime watchers know, my Tactics Armory knives are CNC products. You know, I get a fair amount of bitching when I do too much CNC stuff. I mean, the fact is, most knife makers are kind of grinder-centric. And even if you're forging swords and knives, you know, which is how I actually got started on my own knife-making path, there's just a lot of grinder time. I used to spend just tons of time in front of the belt grinder, but every year that goes by, I spend a little bit less. And I'll get into the whys and wherefores of all of that. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the details of making knives that people tend to gloss over. And I'm not really talking about hide the weenie type stuff of people trying to, you know, not give away their secrets or any of that kind of thing. I'm really talking about things that people kind of look at as being trivial, and so they just don't talk about them all that much. So what am I talking about here? There are all these little dinky problems that you have to solve. Sharpening, etching your logo on the blade, what kind of box you're going to pack it in, making sheaths is another one. But they all add up. And again, whether you're making one knife a year or you're making a lot of them, these things all go into that process. And if you're trying to figure out, hey, I want to make a knife for mom for Christmas, these are things that you sort of have to factor in. They're problems that you have to solve. So anyway, there I go again. Problems, whine, whine, whine. I'm getting happier by the minute. All right, guys. Well, on that note, thanks for listening, and I hope you'll follow my series about making this, the Eclipse, starting in a few days. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and make sure that you click on that bell so you get notified of all the latest videos. Want to buy a knife from me? Check out my modern blades at tacticsarmory.com. Digging the channel? You can support our video making efforts on Patreon. You know, I've been banging away on these videos for like 10 years, so I hope you'll show some love for all that hard work. Link in the cards and descriptions. Finally, if you're interested in making Japanese swords, check out my full line of Japanese sword videos where I show how to forge Japanese swords as well as how to polish them and how to make fittings, handles, and scabbards. WalterSorrellsBlades.com.